Hi everybody, it's RPG Grandma. I need to shake it up a little bit. I will do some psionics and Ardoon and whatever else this week. Um, but I wanted to talk about role playing. Yeah, we keep talking about role playing because it's a subject that keeps coming up. Now I'll be honest with you, this is not something I thought about until I started watching other people's videos and reading stuff on the net and going, whoa, what's the issues? And there's apparently a lot of role playing issues that either I've never dealt with or I just hadn't thought about. And over the years, I've changed my style a little bit here, a little bit there. You get better at stuff, or you get worse at stuff, or you stay the same. But hopefully, the more you do something, you get better, and hopefully, you're open to ideas. So, I was thinking today while I was working that one of the biggest problems is describe, 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 describe. All right. And I say that because people don't describe. And it's not just a player thing. It's a referee thing. Whatever you want to call your referee. And it doesn't matter the setting. So I got thinking about the classic role playing game scenario where the party goes to the tavern, right? Except I'm thinking about it from a space angle, but I thought it'd be fun to do the space tavern. So I started thinking about what a space tavern, what a space bar will be like on a space station, which could lose gravity. And what sort of bar would this be? Now, the bar I came up with in my head is a really seedy place. Um, it is a rated R bar. So for like my current party of people I play with, whether I'm a player right now, but when it's my turn to referee, and I'm going to do a space adventure because there was some interest shown in space adventure. I can't use this. I mean, what I'm going to describe, I cannot use totally in the form that it is going to be in. It's not because it's rated X, but it is R. And I don't feel that the parents of the teenagers, the children at the table, will be comfortable with going as edgy as I'm about to go, which for most adults isn't going to be that edgy. But we have to keep other people's sensibilities in mind, like parents. Now, can I have a bar? Yes, but it's going to have to take a different shape and form, which would also be totally appropriate for a space station. And I have that bar in my mind already if I need to put a bar out in space or in a town. Okay, I have a very specific bar that I've been in locally. It's pretty old. Um, and other bars in my head that I was in and have been in that would fit the bill and be much more GPG 13 ish and still get the job done. But I wanted to describe a place. So all I did, I don't even have a map, but if I was going to make a bar proper of this style, I would probably sketch out a map. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I'd probably have all my regular NPCs that would be there. Now, why is the party going of our space exploring adventurers going to the bar? I don't know. I have no clue. I just started thinking about describe. Because everybody's always, the players don't role play. Well, sometimes referees drop the ball too. And we don't even know we're doing it. So you want to describe the surroundings sufficiently enough and give the players enough information or have ways for them to interact and get the information they need from the NPCs present that they don't have to ask you questions. So let's do My Space Tavern. And we'll see how we do. You enter Space Aces. It's a seedy, dark bar environment. Smoke fills the room, but oddly doesn't seem to have much of a scent. The lighting is dim. There is a stage with music going, lights flashing on the body of the young girl who is rolling around on a pole. You can smell the background scent of some unique odor, probably pumped in to the room to hide unpleasant smells. Around the tables and chairs nearest the stage are men and women of humanity of various planets like Vespa, Grotha, Graham, and Nitro, along with space station crew and locals and spacers like yourselves. There's music going, and the girl moves up and down the pole, gyrating away. She's dressed in a thong and nearly completely naked, except for the little tabs on her boobs. The Roomba robot rolls around collecting the coinage that's being tossed up on the stage. On the individual tables are little devices that act as the lanterns and glow, and pop-up screens that allow the patrons to order things, and they slide their credit cards in. There's 2 waitresses bringing foods and drink. They're much older than the young girl on the pole, swinging around in lascivious ways, serving the patrons. A Galanthian bartender with a scar across his face that cuts into his lip, leaving a permanent sort of growl, and across his eye that you don't know if you can see or not through, but it's a different color, glazed over. There are several booths throughout the building. Most of them have patrons in them, but the one on the far left of the room is empty, and there's one towards the front of the room that's empty, and there's a few empty tables and chairs in the middle of the room. The Galanthian bouncer is large, and he's looking at you. Okay, so I gave some information. I could give more information. The smoke's coming from e-cigs. Galanthians prefer large ones that they like to roll around in their mouth and sort of chew on. The Vespa seem to prefer the long, spindly ones, and they're pumping smoke all throughout the room, for instance. But I didn't quite have that written down in my notes, but if you want to put details in like that, you need to put details in like that. Now let's say they were there to meet a person. Now, if that person's there, and obviously there, just state it. That way they don't have to ask you a question. Do I see Bob? You know? Especially if you don't want them asking you questions. If you want them taking information. So, for instance, I named off a bunch of planets I just made up. But I gave out the information that the bar is full of humanity. and that they come from different planets, and that you can tell that. You can also tell the people who work there, who are locals, you know. And you can tell that there's people from various spaceship crews there. Okay. Now, let's assume the party decides to go sit down and order some food and drinks. All right. So they go to one of the booths. If they're like any of my friends I know who have dodged bullets, they're going to go to the one on the far end of the room where they can see the most and can see people coming in. That's why I specifically said the back left. All right. Versus the one in the front. But either which way they go, that gives me then options as the referee about things that are going to happen and how advantaged or disadvantaged they're going to be. Tactics matter. So they go to, but we're going to assume our group is smart, savvy, because I have savvy players and playmates, if you will, in our RPG group. They're gonna gravitate towards that left booth in the back. The music ends. The female entertainer leaves, and the little Roomba pops out a little bag that she scoops up. So what the Roomba is doing, that I have in here, is collecting all the tips. Because I was thinking about how they're going to tip. I have a bunch of ideas about how they would tip in the future. That was just the most tactile one, but I have a few others that are pretty crazy. And she leaves. The pole splits and goes, sinks. The pole goes up and down, divided, and disappears. Drum music starts. A Galathian male jumps up on the stage, also in a thong, but bulging members showing in an animal hide pattern. He has a big long pole that he starts spinning, and on the ends are two glowing balls, and then they seem to burst into flames. And he starts doing his fire dance, and the drums are pounding. It's very loud, and sweat's pouring off his body. And you can see how the light catches paints that have been put on him that accent his muscles. And various humanity from various planets are enjoying the show, various genders. And some of them, though, aren't into that, and so they get up and they head over to the main bar area, leaving some tables open. And the room was rolling around and collecting tips for him. Now, there's a couple of reasons. I've said there's e-cigarettes at this point now, and I've said that the fire seems to be flame, but I'm implying that it isn't. That's because they're on a space station. Fire foreboding. Okay. But I'm trying to convey some information. And I'm trying to also convey that this audience, the patrons, and the people performing are both genders. You know, it's not just a male-dominated bar environment, that there's different folks here. So let's say they were there to meet somebody, and so they've gotten there ahead of time. So they've sat down in their spot, and they've told me that. All right. Now I'm going to describe the person they're looking for enters the room. Now they need to have some information to know who they're looking for. Now, if you wanted the person there already, you don't have to say Bob's, and you see Bob, but let's say they were supposed to meet somebody in a black hat with a purple shirt on. You would say, sitting at one of the tables, at that original intro is a man in a black hat with a purple shirt. Hopefully it's the right person they're supposed to meet. Hopefully there's some kind of little code or whatever. But this is how you do it. You try to give them enough information to set the stage. And then two, so they don't have to ask you a lot of questions. So that and if they do ask a question, try to break that cycle of asking questions, and part of that, a good part of that falls on you. You have to give them enough information. You have to say, a waitress heads over to you. She's in a silver skirt with a silver tube top on, and she has red hair, but she's definitely older than the young girl on the bar, but she's very well endowed. And she asks you what you would like to invite it. Now at this point, they're going to, oh, well, what can we have? Right? Now, I would take over the part of that NPC and start saying, well, sirs, ma'am, whatever your party's made up of, if you push the little red button there on the console, the menu will pull up, but we have a variety of things on tap. We have Vespin Blue Ale, Trisketal Red Ale, to start going through stuff. But, have this stuff kind of worked out before. We have Synthen Ale, and we have, the following juices, and she's basically directing them how to get through the menu. So think about the setting and think about how you're going to have that stuff available for them to see. Maybe they're there to gather information, so if somebody wants to go over and talk to the bartender, decide how Gloranthian is different than a Vespin. What makes it so the players know the difference? You said that they could tell that. Now give them more information. You go over to Gloranthian bartender. You wonder if his eye is his original eye and it's damaged, or if he's replaced the damaged eye, the artificial one, and he's only pretending that he can't see out of it. You can tell the players that. Put that little idea in their head. That maybe Gloranthians are a little tricky that way. The Vespins. Let's say the Vespins are really hard to tell what gender they are. They all kind of look like girls. Most of them. All right. So you would tell the players some information about the Vespins that they're interacting with, how they're dressed, that sort of stuff. And leave it questionable that you can't tell if they're male or female because of Vespin society is that way. So that's what I'm getting at, because the more information you can give them without boring them to death, of course, the less information they have to ask or an attempt to get from you, and the more likely the players are to talk to each other. So it takes some work on your end. You're gonna drop the ball. I'm gonna drop the ball. I'm gonna mess up from time to time. But it's worth it because it encourages the behavior you want. It all comes down to what's the behavior you want out of the players. So when they do something like, who do I see in the building? If you've already told them where everybody's sitting, that there's like 10 people in the building that they can see, and what they look like, quickly, just like quick stuff, Uh, Waitress in the silver skirt and tube top. The other waitress is in a red metallic skirt and matching tube top. So you don't have to know their names, but there's the red waitress and the silver waitress. You see what I'm saying? There's one bartender. There's a bouncer. All right, so that's four people they already know about. There's whoever's doing the entertainment. Okay, there's a little rumble robot rolling around there, collecting physical tips. There's probably a way to electronically tip them as well, but waitresses and entertainers tend to like non-traceable tips. You can even throw in extra information like, you sigh or a sigh of relief, realizing they've got entertainment, that you're on, the space station in deep space, for instance, that still serves alcohol. They haven't been influenced by the groundhog morality squad from the central planets. You can just throw that in, so they automatically know that they can get alcohol, but there's probably other stuff available as well. There's a little bit more freedom in the zone where they are. So you can give them information via the original narration, is what I'm getting at. And the more you give them to set the scene, like, the lanterns clearly aren't really flame. So the more they see that, okay, there's no actual flame, but there's smoke, and there's haze, and it's caused by this, and there's the guy doing the fire dance over here, sticking his tongue out and thrusting. You just tell them stuff. They understand that open flame isn't probably allowed. You can even state, it's fake fire because you're in a space station and open flame isn't allowed. So they get a whole bunch of information right at the beginning. Probably open flame bad. So you don't really want anything that causes a spark, for whatever reason. They can get alcohol. There's adult entertainment, at least in the form of various near-naked acts going on. You can tip, you can get food, you can get drink, you can probably get information. If you're looking for somebody and that person's already there, have them be there. If they're looking for somebody and they're there first, have them have enough information about that person that they can recognize that person when they walk in. Okay. Give them information, like as you work your way towards the booth, you notice all the tables and the chairs are bolted to the floor, but the chairs seats spin. Okay, that's information. If you give them that information, they will then know that they cannot pick up a chair in a bar brawl and hit somebody over the head with it, but they could spin a chair around and use the backing of the seat maybe defensively. All right, but they probably can't jump on the chairs because they spin. The seat part spins, for instance. If somebody asks, like, why is everything bolted to the ground, you have the option not to answer that directly. You could say one of the gentleman walking by you in the Hawaiian shirt laughs and says, "Don't you know anything? What if we lose gravity?" You must be from a planet. You must be new to space. But you don't have to, answer them directly. You can put an NPC that you weren't intending to put to work suddenly to work. You know, laughing and chuckling at them. So try to think that way a little bit more, and they're still going to ask questions. I mean, it's going to happen, especially if they're new to playing, or they've played like I did for years with the you just have to ask the referee questions, or you're not going to get enough information to work with. And it's not because the referees are attending trying to be bad at their job. They're not. It's just unless you start thinking about, well, how good of a job am I doing in describing stuff, and where's that balance between boring the players to death but giving them the information they need, and how do I achieve that? Sometimes you don't get enough information, or sometimes you get way too much information that has nothing to do with nothing. That's the other thing. You want the information to be useful. See, telling everybody that everything's bolted to the ground means they automatically know they can't use that thing in certain ways to defend themselves. But maybe they could use that spinning seat to spin the seat backing between them and somebody else, at least to buy time. Maybe their tables are close enough that they can jump from table to table. Maybe there's something on the stage they could grab, you know. So there's things you can tell them. You can tell them the waitresses all have trays that they're bringing the food and drink on. They, you want to think about those things. How are you going to describe the setting? What's in what they can see? Like, imagine yourself walking in, and what do you see? And then have that kind of noted out. Especially if it's a place they're probably going to have to go to. But, I made just a quick list, and this isn't a very good list. But, and I wrote down lighting, I wrote down scents, I wrote down what sort of things might be available, just not even detailed. I thought about the booths and the tables and the chairs. I thought about the stage. What would a modern stage with adult entertainment look like? I thought about what's on the tables, what that might look like. I thought about a bunch of other stuff on how to tip the entertainers. I thought about people in the room. How are they all different from each other? So that's what you want to do. You want to do that so that they know what's going on. They have an idea about why, kind of what their environment is, and then they can start interacting with the NPCs that they were either there to meet, or that they're waiting to meet, or NPCs in general to get information for whatever it is that they're doing. If they're to get information, then have information available. Some of it can be useful, some of it can just be, seemingly random, but maybe it'll turn out not to be random. How many drunks are in there? We have some drunken guy. It's going to be a problem. It's going to try to get in a bar fight with the noobs who don't know why tables are bolted to the floor on the space station. Do you want the chairs to be bolted or not? Do you want the tables to be bolted or not? I mean, it's your space station. You can do with it what you want. It just occurred to me that if I was running an establishment in space and there was a tendency from time to time to lose gravity, probably don't want all your furniture floating away. It's pain. You probably, and if the spacers tend to get in fights and try to hit each other over the head with stuff, yeah, you'd probably be bolting stuff to the floor. I just what I figured would be happening. And then I thought about, well, would the poles and stuff move, and could other things drop down? And how would you do a fire dance on a stage in an environment where maybe fire is not a welcome thing? Um, it's the future. You read the old sci-fis that everyone's still smoking cigarettes and cigars. You watch old sci-fi movies, but is that the direction modern society is going towards, or would they have stuff like some kind of electronic smoking device? And they probably still have the other stuff, but that would probably be an expensive thing. Might even be illegal in some places. Even the e-cigs or e-fags or whatever you want to call them. I don't know what they're called. I don't use one of those things. They make a lot of smoke. I see people who have them, and they make a ton of smoke. Maybe they make colored smoke. Maybe you have different colors. These are all things to think about. I thought about, if I were to get into really describing the lady on the pole, or the dude who came out after her, I could go into much more detail. Now, I said this wouldn't be appropriate, though, for my current group. No, it would only be appropriate for the adults in the group, because we play and we have children at our table. Now, some of them are teens. Some of them are one of them just became an adult. But it's not how these kids have been raised. They have not been raised really around this kind of stuff, whereas I had been. So it would be not cool of me to put this into a game. What would be a better bar setting would be a much smaller space, and would work for a space station quite well, where it's all booths, just a few tables, maybe like 3 tables, bolted to the floor, same thing. And then you have the bar with the bar stools bolted to the floor. And it's a very dark setting, just dark cave-like, but with the lighting. And, there's like a music device that you can go and put your credit card in, and pick out the song you want. There's no dance floor. There's no real entertainment. It's just the bartender and the waitress. I mean, I'm talking that narrow kind of bar environment, and a restroom, and the back room. That's really all you got. It's like a strip. I'm thinking of a very, very specific bar in town that I know of. It's very old. It's very much like that. And that is the kind of bar I would probably present to mixed ages, where we don't want to go over PG-13. I'm not going to do that. Having them go to the bar is edgy enough. Now, can it be smoke-filled? Absolutely. Could I put some kind of entertainment game in there? Oh, there's a Terran style ball and stick game over there. I think they called it billiards, right? Yes, I could put that in there. No problem. Then, they could have a bar fight with space pool sticks. Maybe they're aluminum, so they don't break. Some kind of light fiber. They don't break, but they hurt. So you put that stuff in there. Maybe instead there's a dartboard. People bring their game. They go there to play darts, and cards. So you got like that going on instead. But you tell them all this information, so they see what's useful. they were to get into a bar fight. But you keep it appropriate for your group. I hope that makes sense. But again, you need to describe everybody as best you can. In some cases, you can keep it vague until you need to make somebody stand out more, like the guy in the Hawaiian shirt who's laughing at them because they don't know why the tables are bolted to the floor and the chairs. Because we might lose gravity. You must be new to space. Hey guys, I'm some noobs. You know, and if I want to make the guy drunk, and nothing but a bunch of groundhog land lovers. Don't you know nothing? What are you looking at me funny for? You want to fight? You know, you do something like that. And how do you tell the players you're done with your description? Well, there's always body language. I mean, so if you're reading something and doing this thing, and then suddenly you just stop and you're done, you could do that. You could also, you know, do this, and then sit back. And if you have to prompt them, like, okay, what are you guys doing? You might have to. But if every time you do a description and then you give them the same body cue, more than likely they're going to start picking up on that, where they're like, oh, she's done, he's done. He always leans forward when he's telling us something, and then leans back when he's done. They will pick up on that. I guarantee it. People pick up on body language. Anyway, there's just some thoughts. Like I said, I just started working on what would be a really shady adult bar place to go to in a future setting. And you can use that basic concept and keep it, and then just adjust it for the environments. Like, okay, a bar like that, modified, you know, it's going to have a different name on a planet. Might have a bigger stage, you know, things like that. Might have more than one girl performing, more than one dude. You know, bigger space. Still might exist, but their tables and chairs and bar stools won't be bolted to the ground because they're on a planet and there's sufficient gravity. But if you're on a moon base and there's not enough gravity, maybe it will be. And maybe you go into, so you're in one place, let's say a moon base. So you're on a moon base that's under the jurisdiction of the planet, and the planet, they're prudes. People in space can't have alcohol. People on the ground can have alcohol, but people in space can't, like NASA. You guys know that all the other space crews that go up get to have little teeny bottles of alcohol from time to time? Little teeny. They can't get drunk. But they give it to them to celebrate things, you know? Like New Year's. Yeah. So like the Russians have little vodka, and the Chinese, they all get stuff. Everybody. Except for Americans. Americans cannot have alcohol. It's against NASA's policies. So our astronauts can be at the International Space Station. They can't have anything. Everybody else can. Run by prudes. Because people wrote letters. The public doesn't want it. I'm serious. People wrote letters on this planet. The public doesn't want it. You can't have it on the moon or any of the space stations or any of the ships that are out that's their port. That's out of their, like, they have regulations about this. Doesn't mean people aren't doing it. Aren't figuring out how to trade with somebody but making a still somewhere, right? But that's a rule. So if you go into a bar on that moon base, your choices are non-alcoholic beverages. They'll have a nice selection for you, and it will be totally overpriced because of the entertainment. And that's another thing. Prices should always be really expensive at the places who have the exotic dancers. I'm just saying. Like 3 times as high as if you went to the little dive. And they are going to charge you an arm and leg for fake orange juice, let alone a real orange juice is going to be really expensive. You know, make up some non-alcoholic space drinks, Cody Commander. Yeah. Just make some up. A Rocky Jones, Space Cadet. I want a Space Cadet. Yeah. And that's some kind of non-alcoholic mix. That is what you're looking at. And then you modify the places. But once you have a good idea about what a future bar might look like and what a future bar in a place where the gravity's low or could lose gravity, then you can change it based on other environmental factors that is going to affect the bar. That includes laws and regulations. And can be really like, what do you mean? We can't even have e-cigs. E-fags are not allowed, Yeah. Our Surgeon General has determined they're bad for your health. That's contraband, So like when the ship lands or docks, like maybe they're not going to search your ship for stuff because you're coming from another system, but you are going to be met by customs who will give you the list of no-nos for that station. So you want to give them enough information to sort of keep them out of trouble, but if they decide to get in trouble, set them up. And so they don't have to ask you a lot of questions. But it's going to happen. You're going to forget to tell them something. And you can't expect them to know something that you don't tell them. Stuff like that. Anyway, that's my thought. This is a long video. I'm looking at it. It's 42 minutes already. I hope that helps. But my biggest problem as a player over the years has been I have to ask questions because I'm not getting enough information. Or I got a ton of information I didn't need. Like, completely irrelevant. Don't really care if 10,000 years ago this and this thing happened unless it's actually relevant to the story. Like, I'm an archaeologist and we're on an archaeological find and the referee's telling us 10,000 years ago this civilization once existed on this planet, but they're a complete mystery and they left a black pyramid. Okay, that's cool. We're going to go check out the Black Pyramid. All right? And nobody knows anything about this culture, only that the pyramid's like 10,000 years old. Give them that information. But you're not going to give them all this information about this culture that nobody knows anything about. You don't need to give them all the galactic wars that have happened because they probably don't care. It's like there's probably a couple wars they know about, but all the minor stuff, they don't care. Stuff like that. So pick what you're telling them, and make it relevant, so that they're not bored. I've read some opening stuff and like modules I haven't made that's like a ton of information, like why, what in here, and you're trying to figure out how it's even relevant to the dungeon crawl they're going to go on. Not saying you can't use that information but you wouldn't read all of that to the players. On the other hand, I got stuff that's so bare bones. You better sit down and make a list of words and stuff because you're going to be describing stuff and there's no descriptions whatsoever other than there's a goblin in the room. Okay. There's a giant rat in the room. I mean, like nothing. Okay. Or next to nothing. there's a warrior in this room. You know? All right. I wonder what he's doing there. Oh, he's a prisoner. That's it. He'll be a prisoner. Um, why is there a wizard with a wizard shop on the third level of this dungeon? What's he doing hanging out there? Just chilling? Right? So so you have to come up with stuff. Um, but that's okay. It allows you to really make the place your own. But usually there's more information than you need, or there's information that's been put in there purposely. Read the whole, if you buy somebody else's stuff, read the whole thing and try to figure out what they're trying to tell you. So if they've gone to the trouble to describe a room in detail, there's probably a reason for it. So kind of like read through the thing, like the bare bones module that has like hardly any instructions whatsoever. It has stuff throughout it though. I sat down and I carefully read it. The stuff in there is in there for a reason. If you let the party leave with some of that stuff and go sell it, the party won't be able to handle the next levels, and they shouldn't be leaving anyway. Like this is an old school module, like pre-TSR, and I'm going to tell you right now, the idea was the party goes in and they stayed in that module, even though it doesn't say that. There was none of this leave and go back to town stuff, because if they do that, the mission's going to fail. So understand, if you're sending them into something that they can't leave or their mission fails with consequences. I mean, they can survive, cool, but now there's another consequence that you have to give them stuff throughout the whole module so they can survive to get to the point where they complete the mission. That's just the way it is. I know. Everyone's like, that's video gamey. Yeah, this was pre-video game too. So where do you think video games got it from? Just saying. So that was definitely a module where you go in, you don't come out unless you're retreating and you failed or you've succeeded. So think about that. Think about the environment you're putting the player characters into as well, so that they can find stuff they need. Be a little flexible. Sometimes you have to be a little flexible. But yeah, describe stuff. The more you describe and try to clue them in to just talk amongst each other and talk to the NPCs, present an NPC when they ask you a question, like, "Oh, are you talking to me, buddy?" And the more you do that, the less likely they're going to ask you a question, and they're going to start asking each other questions or directly the NPCs. But also don't set them up for a situation where they have to ask you questions. If you do, that's kind of on you, and then you need to work kind of like on that, and ask them afterwards, like, why did you feel you needed to ask me a question? Or, what was I not giving you enough of, so that you don't have repeats of that. Anyway, I should let you go because it's like 48 minutes now plus. Like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you're thinking. But yeah, think about where you're sitting them. Just don't tell them, well, you walk into a bar and it's a dive. You walk into a bar, it's a dive, and there's an exotic dancer. It's not enough information. It's just not. And think about your audience, your players, okay? Your audience, okay? I got kids. So, I mean, it's great. Some people can go like a weekend getaway and do all the stuff, but no, that's not going to happen in our playgroup. We've got kids, we've got canines, we got gnolls to take care of, as we call them currently, and I have livestock that needs to be taken care of. So, yeah, we can't do that, but when we get together and play, we definitely can set the level of our table and maturity level and content level. And I don't have to be told that I should choose which style of bar based on who's at my table. Like, I shouldn't. I should be smart enough as the referee to know I got kids at the table. We're not doing exotic dancers. Versus, I got a bunch of 40 and 50-year-olds at my table. We can do exotic dancers. So, use your brains so you don't have weird negative situations occur as well. That you're not the cause of those negative situations, and then taking it out on the players because some of the players are upset. Anyway, have a great day. Bye.